Okay, so I'm trying to switch things up as we go. I started too fast. Here we go. What terrible videoing for video. All right, so guys, this week we are focusing on a little thing called author's purpose. Okay, so what we're really stopping and thinking about is, what is the reason behind what the author is saying? Like, why did they write this story? What do you think that the author is trying to either persuade or inform or entertain you as their reader? What is the reason behind what we're reading? Because as we already know, everything that we do in writing has a purpose, right? When we write a narrative, our purpose is to just kind of entertain people. You're just telling a story. When you're writing an informative essay, right, you are writing something specifically to teach people about something. When you write an opinion paper, you're just sharing your opinion and your reasons why you have that opinion. This is our author's purpose, right? We get the luxury of having our author's purpose really explained to us when we're writing based on what assignment I'm giving you, right? Like, oh, hey, you guys are going to write a narrative again. Here we go. This is what you're doing. The purpose of this is to entertain your reader by telling them some sort of story. And we're going to continue with that same idea. Even though we've already written one narrative, we've already written one opinion paper, and we've already written one informative essay, we're going to continue to be writing things in that same fashion, right? We constantly circle back to stuff that we've already done before, because learning isn't in a line. You have to spiral back and forth. Now, when you are reading, and this is why ELA is like English Language Arts, and it's reading and writing put together. When you read, you are using the same techniques that you use when you write, except you're kind of doing them backwards. Okay, so instead of me saying like, hey, you are reading an informative essay, you have to look at what the writer has written and be like, what is his reasoning behind it? What is his purpose? Is he trying to teach me something, or is he just giving me his opinion? Now, in the real world, I want to give you guys a real world example. This mistake happens all the time because of free press, because anybody can write anything and put it out on the internet. So you get a lot of people that write an opinion essay where they are giving you their opinions and their explanations for their opinions, right? But it looks like an informative essay. An informative essay happens with research, and it has facts, and it has data. And those two things are very different. So a lot of people read something that they see in the newspaper and they say, oh, it's got to be real because this person is giving me all this information. I want you to put your thinking caps on.
I mean, normally it is because it's on a newspaper that the government sends out.
But that's not what a newspaper is. The newspaper isn't what something, the New York Times, for instance, or the Washington Post, they send out editorials all the time or opinion pieces all the time that people read as fact. Do you think that if I wrote an opinion paper on, say, the coronavirus vaccine, and I'm giving you my opinions, things that I've heard, but it's just my opinions, it's just my explanations, is that the same thing as reading an informative writing by a doctor that studies germs? And he's talking to you about the coronavirus, and he's telling you facts and things like that. Are those two the same thing? It's not the same thing. My opinion is just what I think. I'm not a doctor. So what I just think, and I put out into a newspaper because I wrote the newspaper because I was really upset, and here we go. I'm going to write this whole thing down. But people start reading it and they think it's the truth because they don't know the author's purpose. They don't know if the purpose is to inform a reader based on facts and opinions and research, or if it's to just give you your opinion. That's why the author's purpose is so important. And that's why we're going to take a look at that this week. All right. This is kind of part of being like a digital citizen, right? And having to be a responsible digital citizen and thinking about where your information is coming from. You have to look when you're older and see, is this article that I'm reading somebody's opinion, or is this an actual informative essay? And if it's their opinion, why are they telling me this? What is their purpose behind it, right? If it's somebody's opinion and it's all the scary things about COVID, they're probably not trying to like win you over to like go out in public, right? They're trying to scare you into staying home. But if their opinion is all, well, herd immunity and like, we'll just all get through this and it's all nice and roses and there's no problems that happen, their opinion, their purpose is to get you to what? Go back. Like open schools before they're ready, for instance, or you don't have to wear a mask. Like people that don't think that masks work, right? They're going to write you a whole opinion paper on all the information that they have that are going to explain their position on why masks are not necessary. But that paper would look very different if it was being written by, say, a doctor who studies germs.
Or the government.
Or the government. Or whoever's writing it, right? You have to understand what the purpose is of the author. Now, that I'm saying all that and I'm giving you these real world examples because it's very easy to see in, say, a newspaper setting. It's not really that easy, but like you can figure it out easier than you could in, say, a fictional book, right? Like Miles, for instance, you're reading Warriors. It's going to be harder to kind of think about what is the author's purpose? Why are they writing this? Maybe it's just to entertain you. That could just be the whole reason. I was
going to say it's very entertaining.
Right? So The Stars Beneath Our Feet. This isn't a true story, but maybe they're trying to give you perspective into another life. That could be the purpose. I don't know yet what the purpose is. That would be my guess what the purpose is. Okay? I'm thinking Miss Brown's going to make it in here in about 5 minutes. I'd like to read about 5 minutes worth of this as we wait for her to come in. Okay.
Wait, when can we read?
Well, today you guys will read this afternoon. It's a Monday. Mondays are going to be weird days, guys, because on Mondays we're going to start doing something different during this time. We either have Miss Brown or Mr. Hoxley is going to come in and teach us a coding class. We'll work on that. We'll talk about that later. Okay. All right, The Stars Beneath Our Feet. It's Christmas time. He's bummed. His brother's missing, right? He's got his best friend and his brother's best friend to visit him. We heard about the time that the guy that the mom doesn't like that gave him a Christmas gift and he was opening it. And then the last thing we saw was that he got all this energy at like midnight and just started taking apart all of his Legos that he has and rebuilding them into something new. All right, chapter 4. Late the next morning, I was sitting on our couch and setting up the new phone I had just got. After I had got it to work, my mother and me sat at the kitchen table eating cornflakes with milk and cheese Danish. Ma always liked having cheese Danish on Christmas morning. She bought them from the Fairway supermarket because she thought that they were the freshest. Thanks again for the new phone, Ma, I told her. You're welcome, sugar, she said. Ma suddenly looked at me all serious. Be careful out there with that phone. Wallace, watch your back. Do not use it in the streets for the whole hood to see. I nodded and started downloading. She said, and don't be strutting around here telling everybody that you got a new fancy game console. That's the last thing we need. them breaking in here to steal it and getting away with my Pez collection. I nodded. I really didn't think that they would want Ma's Pez holders, but I kept that to myself. This Harlem free Wi-Fi was so slow for downloads. I guess that's why it was free. I shouldn't let you keep that console, Ma said. She shoved half a Danish in her mouth. I nodded again, checking out what was online with my phone. Ma went on. I don't know why. I just don't. Her head slunk down towards the table. Out of nowhere, she had started to sob again. I remembered even Daddy had cried like a little kid the last time he was over here. Couldn't help it. I stood over Ma and held on, hugging her from behind, letting my chin rest on top of her head. Her scalp smelled nice, like the olive oil she used to condition her hair. I stood there holding her for a few minutes while she cried herself out. I asked, "You think Daddy'll come over today?" Ma sat up straight, clutching my hand. She wiped her eyes with her other hand and started sifting through her cornflakes. You think he'll come for Christmas?" I went on. "Well," she started with a sigh, "you know Benjamin as well as I do. Your father makes up his own mind, his kind of way. If he'd been around more, maybe Jermaine would have turned out different. Daddy comes around sometimes." She grunted and squeezed my hand tighter. "I turned out okay," I said. "You're the best moms, and fathers too." She laughed out loud at this and kissed the back of my hand and let it go. "I just worry," Ma said. My phone screen flashed and chirped. Vega had just sent me another message telling me he had got some new boots for Christmas. Earlier, his first message had read, "Welcome to the 21st century, sucker." Just now, another message said that him and his family were trying to leave for the airport. They were all still upstairs, running late as usual, and his father had started screaming at his mother, blaming everything on her. His little sister, Iris, had started to cry. I shook my head, surprised that I couldn't hear all of them yelling from down here. Just then, the door buzzer buzzed. Ma smiled at me. "You ain't gonna answer that door? You never know, that might be Santa." He might have forgotten something last night. "Impossible. Santa doesn't come to the PJs," I said, even if this is named Saint Nick. I think the PJs are like the projects. "But Daddy comes to the PJs," I suddenly thought. I ran and swung open our front door. Yvonne. All right, my friends, Miss Brown is in the waiting room, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the door from her. We will stop here, and we will pick up where we left off tomorrow. Give me 1 second.